My name is Sonita Mbah, and I'm a Cameroonian, and I work for Jen since I think since 2015, 2014. I can't remember quite. And I work as the um since then, maybe I used to be the only staff of the Ecovillage Network of Africa, and that changed over time. So I'm really excited at the moment that I work together with a group of people at the Gen Africa office, but also I work as I liaise or connect the work of the movement in Africa together with the international movement in a way. And yeah, and also I'm quite passionate about community building and working with young people in a way, bridging or connecting young people more to the earth, so rooting young people, including myself, to the earth. And that's what I have done for many years in Cameroon, working on the Bafut Ecovillage and starting the Bafut Ecovillage and working off with communities in designing regenerative systems for to enhance change in communities and running trainings, lots of different things that support the change and shift in livelihood mindsets for both women, men, communities at large in Cameroon, beyond Cameroon, and and working as in a way this sort of mediator, so attending high level political forums, conferences, and serving as a voice for young people, for women, in bringing in a way the innovative solutions that we have been doing on the ground in most African countries to these platforms, and then learning about the policies and what sort of decisions are made in these platforms, and then transcribe that in a way that communities can best understand and continue the work that we do on the ground. So that's sort of what I have been on. I've been on that like sort of life journey over time, and now I think I'm still like in a learning journey, I would say, and and
Aren't we all?
learning a lot about permaculture and starting to become a more permaculture designer, and learning from other people in the field about a regenerative economy and design methods. So I'm getting my hands on the soil and feeling creative and excited.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's really nice to connect the work as a bridge builder with grounded work. I find it super important, and I'm really happy to hear that from you. Can you tell us a bit about your motivation for joining the COP27 delegation and attending this year's COP?
I think I already like sort of started explaining about why I actually started going to these platforms, and I think the first reason was that it was just because the first COP I attended was happening in Africa, in Marrakesh, so it was on the African soil, and in a way it's easier for Africans to get visa for lots of different reasons, but also that this COP is in Africa, and it's currently called the African COP. It's the implementation COP.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that's my first motivation, to go and to experience in that space together with other like-minded Africans, channel our energies in how can we in our different ways, different projects and initiatives, how can we bring to life the vision of uplifting communities from the vulnerabilities in the face of the climate crisis. And I think that the second motivation is I just want to continue the work that we have been doing as a network over the last years, mainly around the Ecovillage Development Program. And for Africa, it's been more this sort of Pan-African concept of bringing governments and talking to governments about the Ecovillage approaches to sustainability and regenerative design, and how governments could, in a way, implement those strategies that we have already sort of start testing on the ground, and how that could become like the leverage point for government in the implementation of their nationally determined contributions. So already lots of sort of like agreements with, I think, 7 African governments had been signed, and it's in a way very, very crucial and important to mend those stepping stones and to continue to mend those relationships, finding more common grounds on where can we continue to implement actions and find different ways of bringing that work more on the ground, together with the African government. So speaking more with them and finding, other opportunities. And otherwise, as a young person, at the moment quite energized, and climate change, in a way, it's something that is plaguing us as a community, global community. And recently I became quite interested in understanding the connection between collective trauma and climate change. And the deeper I go into this concept, the more I touch the trauma of colonialism, and in a way understand more its connection to climate change and how it's a contributing factor, in a way, to the climate crisis. So personally, in many ways, just healing, or at least touching that trauma, understanding more how it unravels in the climate crisis, and having in a different framing, into the future. What is the climate crisis, and how is it then deeply rooted in those structural, economic, social, cultural processes of injustice that have been quite historical, and how to frame that more into the work we're doing today, and how that is in many ways enhancing what we face in our world today. So these are, in a ways, my main motivations. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That really touched on a lot of my questions. So I appreciate the efficiency and succinctness. It's beautiful. Would you like to mention any of the governments you're hoping to get into contact with this year specifically? Or
Of course, I think we already have this established partnerships with the government of Togo. And I mean, when I say the government, it's mainly their department of the government that deals with climate change in the country, and this is mostly the Ministry of Environment. It varies from country to country. And also we have some partnerships with the Moroccan government, the Gambian government, the government of Burkina Faso, and I think a couple of others that I can't remember, like, just from the top of my head. And together we're taking baby steps, I would say, but governments like the government of Togo is already doing incredible work on the ground, transitioning at the moment. They started with testing, and now they're going on with transitioning. I think already 10 communities to eco-villages. Learning also from the Senegalese example of the national government eco-village program. And Burkina Faso already has this national national program for transitioning 2,000 communities to eco-villages. So there are lots of communities doing incredible, or also governments, and in some cases, like in the Gambia, also doing it in collaboration with communities. So yeah.
It's extremely inspiring, and I really appreciate you investing your life in this work and physically at this year's COP. Thank you so much. I will open the space if there's any dreams you would like to see come to fruition through this year's COP. Otherwise, we can close.
I mean, first of all, I think as a Cameroonian, there are lots of things I would love to see. And maybe one of them, I think one of them is the current COP. There's a big agenda, which is on loss and damage. And I just shared, I think, yesterday in an update that Africa only contributes 3% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and however bears the brunt of the climate crisis. And it's actually really time for lots of companies and governments in the developed world to sort of start paying back. And when we look again into the structures of colonialism and how that has fueled the climate crisis, and I say look again because it's both historical and present. So colonialism, to me, hasn't quite ended. And to see that the governments in the developed world, as they exploit resources, natural resources from Africa, and as Africa continues to suffer from heavy pollution and high sea rises, that governments actually from the developed country, including companies, can start to pay off the losses that communities in Africa, across Africa, have been facing over the years. This would be a big achievement, at least for me as a person, but also for us as a world, because it's not only about Africa, it's also lots of communities generally in the global south, maybe in the Philippines with the typhoons, and lots of other places that are just on the brink of extinction. And these communities continue to face a lot of losses, that if this COP would resolve a sort of fund that would in a way go to, because most African communities, African governments don't have the resources it takes to solve some of the issues within Africa and to solve the climate crisis. This would be actually, groundbreaking. And at a personal level, I would say that I would like to see more people take climate change seriously, and see it not just sugar coated. I know that it's quite a gloomy future we are looking at, but we need to sit in the hurt, in the anger, in the sadness, in the grief, until we find resilient space, or we can relate more with each other in a way that we can soften up and come back out again from this, that we actually as humanity need to do that work of grieving and acknowledging that as difficult as it is, it's here. And I think this is one of the most important things that would enable us to confront it as it is, the giant as it is, and we are anyways part of creating the systems that run the climate crisis as it were, and we should participate in finding solutions. At least start off by accepting that it does. We're at the brink of extinction, and and maybe to use the words of the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, that we are at the brink of extinction with our foot on the accelerator. And that's what it is, and to actually come to terms with that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sonita. Thank you also for building that bridge in your last statement, sitting in the grief, because that's something that we can all do, whether or not we're attending the COP, in solidarity. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.